Hello everybody, just wanted to let you know it is currently the next morning and we are back at Sierra's van build. This is day 2 of our 2-day van build, and in day 1 we were able to assemble the battery system as well as the electrical components to give Sierra the ability to have 12 volt and 120 volt power in her van. She actually has more than 200 amp hours of battery power, which is really good. So I wanted to do a quick follow-up to show you what we did last night. We actually worked till very late last night to get the system rigged up and going. Essentially, the battery box is complete. It can shut like this and has a lock on it, so it can, latch and lock right there, so it's secure. Got a compartment here for 2 marine batteries that are each rated at 114 amp hours. So she really has 228 amp hours worth of power here. They're both 12 volts, and we wired them in parallel. Now right now we currently just have a clamp for the cable here that we bought. We bought a cheap cable. Actually, I think it was a 8 gauge. The initial wiring here that we used was a 4 gauge, which in a future build, I probably will not go 4 gauge. I decided to go 4 gauge because people were telling me that you should go as large, wire as possible, which makes sense. But the problem is the connectors I had, they weren't designed for 4 gauge. And we actually had to cut part of the interior wiring out. And that, of course, obviously creates a bottleneck where the electric flow will go. So we've effectively cut our 4 gauge down to like maybe a 8 or 10 gauge wiring. So in the future, I think I would do the whole wiring for the van assembly using either 8 or 10 gauge. Even though I know it's not as efficient as going smaller, but seeing as to how we had to cut components, we had to cut the wiring down to get it to fit the components we had. It doesn't make sense to get large wiring that you're going to have to reduce it down anyways. It's more expensive and it's harder to work with. Now, luckily for us, her van already had a bunch of holes, so we were able to pull wiring and drop it through the existing holes. You can see the van interior right now is kind of disassembled and not really put together. This is a partial build. See Sierra there. This is a partial build that she had started, but it kind of went into limbo. So we're going to try to finish it all up. Let me go ahead and before I divert though, let me go ahead and tell you how the wiring looks, okay? Essentially, we got 4 gauge wiring that I pulled all the way up here. I split the positive and the negative, and even though this looks like a negative wire coming up here, the black with the stripe on it, it's actually running up as a positive because you can see it's connected to this. This is a fuse that I bought, a large fuse unit. You can see it pops up here. It's got a 30 amp fuse in it. And I had bought this from the flea market the other day, preparing for her build. So that's our 30 amp fuse, and it comes up to this wire. So the large 4 gauge comes up and connects to our fuse here, which is already reducing the the wiring. It's already shrunk down. I think this is a, what is this? This is a 10 AWG wire, I think 10 or 8. I think it's a 10. So it connects to her battery system here on the positive. So that's all we did as far as wiring. So we pulled 1 wire. I had to use this giant size screw-on cap thingy to get the 2 wires to mesh together. That was the small one here from the fuse to the larger one. So I bought this at Home Depot. It's like a giant mega size twist thingy. So the wire gets pulled under there, and it actually comes up. So it goes underneath her vehicle, and I use the zip ties, and I bring it up here through an existing hole that she had, and we made the hole bigger. Then we ran it up through here to this hole that she already had in the side of her panel, and brought it up to an opening that she had, which was almost perfectly sized for a power switch. Now, we decided to go with a manual switching system because we're short on time and didn't actually have time to order and get a battery isolator. And truthfully, I actually prefer, I think, a manual system like this, because by isolating the battery manually with the switch, we can disconnect the batteries and reconnect them at will. And the reason that's important is, let's suppose your main vehicle battery died for some reason. If you throw the switch like this right now, throw it on, it connects the two battery systems, her vehicle battery to the one in the back. And that allows the house battery, the ones in the back, to actually charge up her vehicle battery. And she can start again. She can basically jump start herself with the flick of a switch. Anyhow, the black cable, which is still positive even though it's black, comes up in here and connects to one of the posts here for the switch. And then we took the red from the other part of the jumper cable that we cut, and we connect it to this part. And when you throw the switch, the black and the red are connected. So the red cable, she's run through the back of her van, and it comes up out that hole right there. I mean, it comes from along the wall of her vehicle to that hole right there. You see the hole right there by the motor assembly that she had. I guess she had a wheelchair lift or something in here before. But anyhow, it goes down that hole, and we wire it and pull it all the way out here, and you can see zip ties everywhere to hold everything kind of in place. And it comes up to the red positive here, which connects to both reds. You see our battery's already wired in parallel, so we only need to connect it to the terminals on this end. So the red comes here. Now you don't actually have to pull the negative wiring. All you have to do is ground the negative. So we took a piece of the black cable and we ran it here alongside, and it's actually right now not permanently mounted, but we're going to do a better assembly. You can see how I just basically hooked it up to the chassis or the body of the vehicle, because it's metal, and that's our ground. Originally I was going to put it up here, but I couldn't get it to fit. I couldn't get the right screws. So we kind of put it in place right there with a bolt and a washer. I'm going to try to do a better connection, although it seems to be pretty good actually, so we might just leave it like that. But that's our ground. So you don't have to run the black cable, the ground cable, all the way back up to the front. You only have to connect the black to the frame of the vehicle to create a complete circuit. Now, what you're looking at here with the jumpers, this was a temporary connection, although we might leave it like that for now until we have time to fully put on connectors and whatnot to make it a better connection. We're just going to leave it like that for now. But this was a cheap, when I say cheap, it was cheaper than the 4 gauge. This was, I think, an 8 gauge wiring that we got for a jumper. It was like $8 at Walmart. And you can see I did switch out the ends there, and I put like a cap in on there, which I need to do better, because you can see it's well, see, it's kind of falling apart and very dangerous right now. But that was a temporary rigging that I had hooked up so that Sierra could have some power last night. And she got to experience power for the first time. What was it like?
It was actually really nice.
Let me come up close, because I don't think they can hear you. Yeah, what was it like to have power for the first time?
So I was actually really doubtful that it was actually going to work, but I actually found that even though it wasn't even hooked up to ice or anything like that, it actually kept me pretty cool. I actually had to turn the fan down to the back door so it would bounce off the door, then bounce back on me, just to cool it down a few degrees.
And that was just a regular 12-volt fan.
That was just a 12 volt. I found that I actually even had my favorite blankie and curled up and went to sleep fine. Towards the morning it got a little hot, so I just pulled the blanket up a little bit and kept the wind, you know, bouncing off the door, and that was plenty. And
so now is the need to get like an air conditioner installed urgent, or?
I'm not going to do that actually. I'm actually going to play it by ear. I'm feeling pretty hopeful at this point that I'm not going to need it. That I'm going to be able to just do the swamp cooler effect, stick around so I can get everything to go. And I got to be honest, I really have him to thank me for this. So you want to know how to do things, you want to see someone do it, you know, before you actually do it, see his mistakes, successes, he really is the person to ask.
Alrighty, well thank you very much, Sierra, and we're going to do some more work today, right?
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it.
Alright, I'll do another video to show you some of the upgrades we're going to do, and we're going to actually try to make the vehicle even more comfortable and with some cheaper cooling alternatives rather than installing an air conditioner, even though we have that potentially set up as an upgrade in the future if we need to.
Absolutely. We got the space now, we've got the wiring, we got everything set up for it if needed.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.